Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Museum Munchkins. My name is Mr. Nick, and today we are talking all about these teeny tiny little animals called flies. And we're going to start off today by singing a song about flies. If you want to stand up on your feet. Now, this song, we're only going to sing it a little bit today because I have a surprise. Our song today is also our story. So we're going to learn a little bit about this song today. We're going to play it a little bit right now. And then later when it's time for our story, we're going to sing it all the way through. So today, right now, we're just going to learn a little part of this song and learn some motions. Are you ready to sing along with me? Great. So this song is called Shoo Fly, Don't Bother Me. So in this song goes like this. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. I belong to somebody. And so when we sing that, we're going to do some motions along with it. So when we say, shoo fly, can we go like this? Like you're swatting a fly away from your face. Maybe there's a fly buzzing around your face and you want to get it out of your way. So you say, shoo fly, like this. And move your hand like that. And then we're going to say, don't bother me. And we're going to move our finger like this, like we're saying no to that fly. Can we try doing that one time through, really slowly to start? Are you ready? All right. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. I belong to somebody. Very good. So let's practice that shoo fly again. Are you ready? Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. I belong to somebody. Very good. Now let's remember those actions we learned. The shoo fly like this to swat the fly away from our face, and then telling it not to bother us like that for when we sing our song all the way through in a little bit. So I'm going to set my guitar down for now so we can talk all about flies. And today, if you have a question while we're talking about flies, you can let us know in the comments, and we're going to answer some questions a little bit later on in our show while we're making a really fun craft that we've got for you today. But first, let's talk a little bit about flies. Have you ever seen a fly before? I bet you have. Flies are really common insects. I'm going to get really close to our camera like that so you can see them. Flies are really common insects, maybe the most common insect that we find here on our planet. And we find them all over the place, and we find tons of different types of flies. In fact, did you know that scientists so far have found 125,000 different types of flies? And in fact, if we took all of the fish that we know about and all of the amphibians like frogs and salamanders that we know about and reptiles and birds and mammals like us, if we took all of those groups of animals, scientists only know about 40,000 of all of those types of animals. So there are 3 times more flies that we know about than all of those other animals put together. That's a lot of flies. And scientists think that there are even more flies on our planet that we've just never discovered. There could be up to 1 million different species of fly on our planet. That's a lot of different types of flies. But the most common flies that you might have seen, maybe around your house, are house flies. But flies are a type of insect. Do you know any other types of insects? Bees are insects, and ladybugs, and butterflies, and ants. Beetles, there are tons of different types of insects on our planet. And let's talk a little bit, because flies are so small, I thought it would be better to draw a picture of a fly to talk a little bit how flies are insects, instead of trying to see one of those teeny tiny little flies. So since flies are insects, they have 3 body segments. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. They have a head, a thorax, that's kind of like our chest and our tummy, and an abdomen, which is their bottom. So a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. So they have those 3 body parts. Then flies have 2 eyes. Can you find your eyes? Yeah, we have 2 eyes too, but flies have really big eyes. Their eyes are so big, a lot of flies, their eyes almost touch in the middle. Their eyes are so big. So they have these big, giant eyes on the front of their heads. They actually have special eyes that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then they have 2 antennae, which are kind of like the little feelers that stick off the front of their head, but on a fly, they're very small. Just boop, 2 little antennae, just like that. And then flies, because they're insects, have 6 legs. Can you help me count to 6 while I draw some legs on this fly? Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 legs. Perfect. And then flies are different from other insects because flies only have 2 wings. Most insects have 4 wings, but flies have 2 wings. So I'm going to draw 2 wings on my fly here. 1 and 2. 2 wings. But then flies have, because even though they don't have 2 or 4 wings, they have actually something that's really interesting on their body that you might not have heard about today. And I'm going to tell you about today. They're called halteres. Can you say that word with me? Halteres. Great. Can we try saying it again really quietly? Halteres. Yeah, really quietly, because flies don't make a lot of noise. So halteres are actually just behind their wings, and they kind of look like a little club or like a baseball bat or something like that. And they stick out behind their wings, and they're very important for a fly. So if you've ever seen a fly buzzing and zigzagging around your house before, you'll probably notice that they are very good flyers. But they're actually really slow insects. They're not very fast, even though they seem like they are. But it's because they're such good acrobats. They're good at spinning and swirling and flying in circles and making quick maneuvers. But they can only fly about 5 miles an hour, which is pretty slow. At their fastest, they can fly 5 miles an hour. But because they have those halteres, they're very good at zigging and zagging all over the place. So those halteres help them to balance while they're flying. So as they buzz their wings, can we get our hands flapping like some fly wings? While they buzz their wings around, their halteres buzz around too, and they help them so that their bodies stay perfectly still in the air while they're flying. Or if they zig to the side like this, can you zig and zag to the side like this? Those halteres help to keep their head focused straight ahead so their head doesn't move, because their halteres tell them that their body is just moving around, maybe because there's some wind or maybe because there's somebody who's swatting at them. And that's another thing. Flies are really good at escaping from things because of their big, giant eyes. Have you ever tried to swat a fly before? Yeah, it's pretty hard, isn't it? Because flies have these special compound eyes, where our eyes only see one thing at a time. So we only see one picture at a time with our eyes. Flies have tons of different pictures in their eyes that they can see at a time because there's so many little lenses in their eyes that focus on different things. And so we can actually do an experiment to show how fast a fly's eyes can see something and why it's so hard for us to swat them. All right, so what I want us to do is we're going to clap our hands, but we're going to do it on kind of like a beat like this. Can you clap your hands like that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. So we can see our hands clapping 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. But a fly, when we're clapping, a fly can actually see things 4 times faster than we do. So instead of seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, can you clap like that again with me? 1, 2, 3, 4. A fly instead sees 1, 2, 3, 4. So they see way faster. So if a fly was watching us clapping right now, they would kind of see us in slow motion, which is why it's so easy for them to escape from us if we're trying to swat them away from our faces like that. So a fly kind of sees us, if we move our hand like this to swat them, a fly kind of sees us like moving really slow to try to swat them. And that's why they're able to get away. Now you might be wondering, what sort of food does a fly eat? Well, because there's so many different types of flies, they eat all sorts of things. But usually, because flies like eating things that are liquid, that are easy to slurp up, like what are some, can you think of some liquids, some things that are easy to slurp up? Things like water or milk or soup is a liquid. So flies really like eating soup, basically, but they like eating soup of lots of kind of gross things like fruit soup or old dirty grass soup. Basically, they like to eat things that are kind of rotting and turning into soup by themselves already. So flies like to eat lots of different types of things, but they like things that they can slurp up with their mouths, because a fly's mouth kind of looks a little bit like a sponge. So they kind of pat their mouths on things to slurp up the liquid that they find wherever they're buzzing around. Sometimes they even like to go inside flowers and things. And flies, speaking of flies and flowers, some flies are really good at camouflaging themselves, at pretending that they're other insects. Do you ever like to do that? Like to pretend maybe that you're another animal? Maybe you pretend that you're a lion. Could you pretend you're a lion right now? What would a lion do? We can make some claws and we can give a big roar. Or if we wanted to pretend we were a snake, we could move really slowly back and forth, making sort of a hissing sound like that. We could do that. We could pretend to be all sorts of things, couldn't we? But flies really like to pretend to be other insects. In fact, here I brought a picture of a fly pretending to be another insect. Now, one of these pictures is a picture of a fly, and one of these is a picture of a wasp. Can you tell which is which? Well, if we look at them very closely, they both have yellow and black stripes. They both have 2 eyes. Does one of them have teeny tiny little antennae? And does one of them only have 2 wings? Yeah, so this one is a fly called a mimic fly, and this one is a yellow jacket, a type of wasp. So, but you can see how they pretend to be other insects, and then Other things leave them alone. So things that don't like to mess with yellow jackets. I don't like to mess with yellow jackets because they have a stinger. So some animals will think, ooh, that's a yellow jacket. I'm going to leave that alone. But it's just a fly pretending to be a yellow jacket. And there are lots of flies who do things like that. Now, flies can also be kind of annoying, buzzing around our houses, eating food around our houses, like fruit and things that we might leave out. Or they might buzz around our backyard. And some people get really annoyed with one type of fly, the mosquito. Mosquitoes are actually a type of fly too. Did you know that? Yeah, so there are so many different types of flies that live on our planet. And I brought a story today about a mouse who's having a lot of trouble with a fly. Do you remember our song that we sang at the very beginning? Shoo fly, don't bother me? Do you remember the actions? So we're going to go shoo fly and swat away at our faces like that, and don't bother me, just like that, while we read Shoo Fly as told and illustrated by Isa Trappini. So we're going to read this book together, and whenever you hear shoo fly, don't bother me, we can do those actions together. Are you ready? Great. All right. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. I belong to somebody. There's that fly bothering that little mouse. That fly has gone away. At last I'm free to play. I told that pest to scram. Now I'm happy as a clam. Shoo fly, don't bother me. You're not my cup of tea. Please stop annoying me. Kindly go and let me be. Ooh, that fly is pretty pesky. I think I'll find a nook, curl up and read a book, some nice and quiet spot, some place where that fly is not. Can you find the mouse where he's going to go read a book? I found him down here in the yarn. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Go fly to Tennessee. Leave on the count of 3. Can't you see you're bugging me? Oh, I don't think that fly minds that he's bugging that mouse. I need to go outside and find a place to hide. My plan had better work, or I'll really go berserk. Can you see any other insects in this picture, like the flies? I see a butterfly over here on this flower, and a ladybug zooming around this pot. Oh, and one over here too. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Please leave immediately. Fly far away from me. I don't want your company. My tummy has a hunch that I could use some lunch. I think the coast is clear. No more buzzing in my ear. Do you think that fly finally took off so that mouse can have some lunch? Shoo fly, don't bother me. Go find your family. Go hide up in a tree. Just don't stay and pester me. Oh, that fly has an umbrella though. He's trying to spray him with the water, but the fly has an umbrella. I really need a rest from that unwelcome guest. I'd better take a nap. Otherwise, I think I'll snap. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Go spread your wings and flee across the great blue sea, all the way to Waikiki. I'm beat without a doubt. Oh, that fly has worn me out. So now I'll close my eyes. Hope that I don't dream of flies. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. I belong to somebody. That mouse finally got away from that fly when he went to sleep. And look, the fly decided to go to sleep finally too. That's a pretty fun book. I'd never heard that whole song before. I'd only ever heard that first part, the shoo fly don't bother me part. So when I found this book, I thought that was really fun and I wanted to share it with you. All right, so now we're going to do a craft. While we do our activity, I'm going to answer some of your questions. So for today's activity, we're going to need just a couple things. We're going to need some string. I've got 2 pieces of string here. You could use yarn too, but we got some string. I need 1, 2, 3 paper clips. I need a pencil, some scissors, a piece of scratch paper, or you could use a coffee filter, and really anything you want to color on, but we don't need very much of it. That's why I'm using this piece of scratch paper that I already used for another project. And then we're just going to need some things to color with. I've got some markers here. So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to draw some flies. Now first I want to make sure that I don't make my flies too big. So I'm going to use my paper clip kind of as a marker. So I'm going to lay it down on my paper and I'm going to make a little dot at the top and the bottom of my paper clip. And I'm going to make 2 of those, just like this, so I can see how big my paper clip is. Because I don't want to make my flies too big. So see how I put a dot at the top and a dot at the bottom. So then I know how big to make them, because I'm going to use my paper to draw some fly wings. So I'm going to draw, starting up at the top dot, I'm going to draw 1 fly wing. And I'm going to make sure I don't go past that second dot. And then 2 fly wings. And then I'm going to kind of make down to that little dot the rest of my fly's body, just like this. And then I think I'll color it in like this. Oh, and while we do this, let's answer a question, shall we? So Cecilia wants to know if flies can see good when they're flying. Yes, Cecilia, they can see very well while they're flying. So because of those halteres, remember those 2 little kind of stick things that stick off the side of their body, those help them so that even though their body is moving and flying around, their head is staying perfectly still so that they can focus on exactly what it is that they're flying towards. All right, so I've got my 1 fly here, and I think I'm going to make, I've got 2 paper clips, so I'm going to make, or I've got 3 paper clips really, but I've got 2 that I'm going to use to make flies. So I'm going to draw another fly here next to it, next to another pair of dots. And this one, I think I'm going to color orange. I'm going to make it kind of an orange fly. Perfect. All right, so now I've got my 2 kind of fly shapes. And I think actually I'm going to give them both 1 little head. Kind of a round circle at the front, just like this, with 2 little antennae. Perfect. Now I've got some flies. Now I'm going to cut out my flies while we answer another question. So Joanna wants to know, what do flies eat? So Joanna, flies eat lots of different types of things, but they usually eat things that other animals don't really want to eat. So we see them a lot on like old plants that are kind of rotting and dying away. Or we see them eating really old fruit that other animals don't want to eat. Sometimes we even see them, I see them in my backyard, landing and flying and touching things like dog poop in my backyard. So some flies like to eat that, which sounds kind of gross. And another interesting thing about flies is how they taste things. And I want to tell you this, I forgot to tell you this because it's really interesting. And the next time a fly lands on you, maybe you'll think about this, is that a fly doesn't have a tongue to taste its food like we do. Can you find your tongue? Where's your tongue? Yeah, so we have a tongue that our bodies use to taste the food that we eat, but flies don't have a tongue, and they don't taste with their mouth. In fact, a fly tastes with its feet. So there's little sensors on their feet that tell them about the taste of the food that they landed on, and so then they will land on something and decide, oh, this is a good thing for me to eat or not, by tasting it with their feet first, which I think is really interesting. So the next time a fly lands on you, it's not only standing on you, it's also tasting you. Pretty interesting, I think. Okay, I've got my 2 little flies here, and now I'm going to take 2 of my paper clips, and I'm going to stick 1 paper clip on this fly, but I'm not going to push it all the way down, and 1 paper clip on this fly. Just like this. So we're going to leave a little bit of space right up here at the top. Perfect. All right, and now I'm going to need my string. So my string, I'm going to tie to one end to the paper clip on my fly, and then I'm going to save the other end for right now. We'll find out what we're doing with that in a next step. And I'm going to do the same thing with my other fly. I'll have 2 flies on strings. All right, loop over like this, and if you don't know how to tie, you can ask a parent for help, or maybe a friend who knows how to tie. So we're going to tie just a simple little knot so that our flies can't get away. All right, and now that I've tied those knots, now I can push that paper clip all the way down on the fly. There we go, perfect. And now I need my other paper clip, and I'm going to bend it. So I've got my paper clip like this, and I'm going to bend this short side here so that it sticks out a little bit. Just like this. So you can see how I bent it. So there's kind of a little stick part of it sticking down like that. And then I've got 2 loops of my paper clip still on both sides. And that's what I'm going to do, where I'm going to tie the other side of my string. So I'm going to tie each fly to my 3rd paper clip now that I bent the middle of it down. Just like this. And 1 on the other side. Careful not to get them tied up to each other. Ooh, and we've got 1 more question to answer. So Claire, William, and Adeline, 3 people all want to know how long they can fly before they have to land. That is a very good question. So it depends on the fly for one, but house flies usually don't fly for very long. They usually only fly for a few seconds at a time, but there was one housefly that scientists watched it to see how far it would fly, and it flew for 20 miles without landing. So some flies fly for a really long time, and some flies don't fly for very long at all. It just depends on the fly and where they're going, and if they see something interesting that they want to stop and check out. All right, so now I've got my 2 flies tied to the end of my paper clips, and that 1 little stick pointing down, and you might need some help with this part too. I'm going to take my pencil, and I'm going to stick that pointy part of my paper clip right down into the eraser on my pencil, just like this. And if you don't have a pencil, you could do this with like a straw. You could tape the paper clip to the top of a straw like that, but I want it on my paper clip like this. So now I've got 2 flies dangling from my pencil. But well, these are going to be some fun, buzzing, flying flies. So now I'm going to put the pencil between my hands like this. And I'm going to see if I can get my flies to buzz and fly around. Should we try? There, my flies are buzzing around. They almost look like they're fighting and flying against it or playing a game with each other. So we're going to make some fun, buzzing, flying fly craft today. That's pretty fun, right? And we can make that with all sorts of insects, or you could even add more flies to your fly buzzing game if you want to. I only added 2 to mine, but if you had a really big piece of scrap paper, you could add a whole bunch of flies to yours. Thank you guys so much for joining us today to learn all about flies. I hope you learned something interesting today and had fun, and I hope that you join us next week when we learn all about atlas moths. And if you guys are still looking for fun and interesting things to do this summer, the museum actually is selling some really fun activity boxes that I wanted to just quick show you. So we have these available on our website in all sorts of different activities like fossils and dinosaurs, and ecology, learning about plants in our environment, art and archaeology, all sorts of things, and you can check those out on our website. Thank you guys so much for joining us today, and I hope that we see you next week. Bye-bye.